Good morning, Brew Daily show. I'm Neal Freyman.
And I'm Toby Howell.
Today, Palantir CEO turned an earnings call into fight night.
Then Coca-Cola thinks the best way to spread holiday cheer is through AI-generated ads. It's Tuesday, November 4th. Let's ride.
Good morning and happy Election Day, which, despite being on an off year, features high-stakes races across the country. People around the world will be watching New York City's mayoral race, where self-described Democratic Socialist Zoran Mamdani could become the next leader of the global hub of capitalism. There are also big gubernatorial races in Virginia and New Jersey, while Californians will vote on a measure that would allow Democrats to redraw the state's House map. If you need me later, I'm going to be locked in on the results coming out of Queens County, which has picked the mayor of New York every election since 1989.
First, impeccable use of the word gubernatorial. Always good when you can get that into a show. And then second, if early voting is any indication in New York City, there is going to be record turnout today. New York City's Board of Elections said 735,000 voters cast ballots during the early voting period, which is more than 5 times the number of early voters in 2021. In total, turnout is projected to reach about 2 million voters. If that number proves to be accurate, that would outpace any New York City mayoral election dating back to 1969, according to the newsletter 1440. So I guess get in line early, and because there's probably going to be some crowds. And now a word from our sponsor, U.S. Bank. Picture this, Neal. You're inviting all of your friends over for a movie night, myself included.
You included? That's presumptuous.
Stay with me. You've got everything ready from snacks to surround sound. There's just one problem. Your couch. It's time to get a new one, man.
Fine. Luckily, I don't have to pay out of pocket thanks to the U.S. Bank Split World MasterCard.
Introducing the U.S. Bank Split World MasterCard, a new type of card that lets you pay later on every purchase. With the Split card, all purchases are automatically divided into 3 payments and placed into a payment plan to be paid back over 3 months.
If you're looking for additional flexibility, any purchase over $100 can be extended to 6 or 12 months with equal monthly payments for a low monthly fee. Whether you're paying for an unexpected bill or are buying a new sofa like me, pay later on every purchase with the U.S. Bank Split Card.
Learn more at usbank.com/splitcard. That's usbank.com/splitcard.
Consumer goods giant Kimberly-Clark is reaching for the medicine cabinet and popping a couple Tylenol. Yesterday, the company announced it agreed to buy Kenvue, the maker of Tylenol, in a nearly $50 billion deal that's one of the largest this year. When the acquisition closes, the combined company will be with you every step on life's journey. Kimberly-Clark and Kenvue together have $10 billion brands that stock the nursery to the nursing home. They'll supply Huggies diapers before you're potty trained, Listerine mouthwash you'll use before prom, Tylenol for your hangovers in college, Kleenex when you watch your first child get married, Band-Aids when you realize you aren't as athletic as you used to be, and Depends when it all comes back full circle. Kenvue investors were also getting sentimental, sending the battered stock up 12% thanks to the lifeline Kimberly-Clark just threw their way. Spun out of Johnson & Johnson in 2022, Kenvue has struggled as an independent consumer healthcare company despite a stable of iconic brands like Tylenol, Benadryl, Neutrogena, Sudafed, and Neosporin. Shares are down nearly 35% since its IPO 3 years ago, and 2025 has brought even more headaches. In September, President Trump made unfounded claims linking the use of the active ingredient in Tylenol during pregnancy to higher risk of autism, causing a fresh sell-off in Kenvue stock. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton followed that up by suing Kenvue for alleged deceptive marketing to pregnant women. So, Toby, Kimberly-Clark is making a $49 billion bet that the Tylenol legal clouds will blow over.
Yeah, activists have been circulating this company for a long time now, pushing for something to change in this business. And Kimberly-Clark said, all right, we'll step in and be that change agent. But you are right. The big story here is all the legal scrutiny that is surrounding the Tylenol maker. A lot of analysts say that Kimberly-Clark might be entering a Bayer-Monsanto situation, which is basically when you acquire a company with so much legal liabilities that it just offsets any profits you were hoping to gain. So if you can figure out those legal liabilities, if maybe the political undercurrents change and the winds start blowing away from all the scrutiny on Tylenol, then maybe you did just get a household brand name for a pretty solid discount. if those things don't blow over, then you just overpaid for a brand that is going to have more headaches than profits.
Wall Street sure seems skeptical that this deal will go through. So Kenvue's stock did go up 12% yesterday, but it's sitting at just $16 now. Kimberly-Clark agreed to pay $21 a share for this company. So they're going to buy it at $21 a share. It's right now at $16 after the deal was announced. That gap indicates that investors aren't really sure that this deal will get regulatory approval or they won't back out. But Kimberly-Clark's CEO got up to the mic yesterday and said, we met with all the medical, regulatory, and legal experts and ultimately concluded that this deal is a, quote, generational value creation opportunity for both companies. Kenvue's CEO has also come out and said, we stand behind the science of our products. These things have been studied for decades. So RFK Jr., the top health official in the United States, has already backed off the claims around Tylenol and autism. President Trump hasn't really done that, so maybe RFK's move back was one of the reasons that spurred this deal to be made on Monday.
And then just from a business perspective too, CPG companies in general are trying to move away from some of these lower margin categories like tissues or diapers that have been increasingly coming under tariff pressure as well, just facing margin pressure in general, and trying to move into the health and wellness space where margins are a little bit better. So maybe this pivot towards premium products will just work out for Kimberly-Clark. So maybe that's what's the conversation that's going on in the boardroom right now, saying, all right, you can only sell so many tissues. There's only so much margin in that business. Let's try to snap up this business that has a more premium product line. It has those over-the-counter drugs, and so this acquisition potentially accelerates that shift. Moving on, Palantir reported earnings yesterday, and according to its CEO, it's in the nosebleed zone, reporting growth so rarefied, you need to bring a tissue to even set eyes upon it. Its revenue grew 63% compared to last year. It raised its annual outlook for the rest of the year to $4.4 billion, and it extended its streak to 21 consecutive quarters, beating analyst estimates. The stock is now up 175% this year, though it's currently down about 7% in pre-market trading. Now, what does Palantir do other than have a stock that seemingly only goes up? The work is both mysterious and important. It sells AI software to governments with controversial contracts with the U.S.'s immigration enforcement arm and large companies like Ferrari and Airbus to help organize data and make better decisions. Alex Karp, its outspoken CEO, said that the company's climb to a $490 billion valuation with a forward price to earnings ratio of almost 280 has, quote, confounded most financial analysts and the chattering class, whose frames of reference did not quite anticipate a company of this size and scale growing at such a ferocious and unrelenting rate. So yes, Neal, Karp thinks it's bursting blood vessels with its growth, and he isn't afraid to rub it in the faces of any who dare doubt this company.
We haven't seen this kind of trash talking since Kevin Garnett. I mean, you look at this earnings call, and he was absolutely rubbing it in the face of these analysts who are skeptical of Palantir. He said, by any normal or even reasonable standard, these are not normal results. They are not even strong results. These are arguably the best results that any software company has ever delivered. He added, we were right, you were wrong, and we are going to be very, very deep in our rightness. Please turn on the conventional television and see how unhappy those that didn't invest in us are. Enjoy, get some popcorn, they're crying. And the people he's addressing are analysts who are looking at how expensive this stock is. It has a price to sales ratio of 85. It's the most expensive stock in the S&P 500. And they're saying, we don't quite understand how this stock is so high. Revenue growth of 63% is nice, but it's not what NVIDIA was doing for the past couple of years. So you had D.A. Davidson's Gil Loria saying all these numbers are completely disengaged from fundamentals. RBC Capital Markets wrote, we cannot rationalize why Palantir is the most expensive name in our software coverage. So all of the analysts on Wall Street are saying we don't quite understand it. And then Alex Karp, on the other hand, said we are riding a wave of retail enthusiasm because they're getting a lot of power from the individual investors who believe in it. And, their results keep going up, except the stock is down a little bit like pretty much everything else this morning.
Meanwhile, Palantir is also making waves in the education space, which is not something you would normally associate with the company. It wants to start this fellowship that it's calling a meritocracy fellowship, where it's inviting 22 high school students from a ton of applications to participate in this 4-month intensive program where they will teach them about, Western civilization, U.S. history, political movements, as well as, teaching them technical skills to eventually become forward deployed engineers within the company. So they're making this bet that traditional education system is born. You'd be better off, skipping that, going on a fast track to working at Palantir, and apparently 22 people agree with that and want to participate in this program. So it kind of mirrors a similar thing from Peter Thiel, the Thiel Fellowship, which is you pay someone $100,000 to skip college altogether and start building a program. So it's, no matter what it does, it almost wants to spur controversy, and this is just another instance of it kind of pushing the envelope here.
Tomorrow, Chinese online retailer Shein will open its first physical store in the heart of Paris, a move that's generated outrage in the fashion capital of the world. What happened yesterday didn't exactly endear the company anymore to the French public. On Monday, the French government threatened to ban Shein from operating in the country after an investigation by the Consumer Fraud Agency found sex dolls resembling children on its platform in France. This has crossed a line, said France economy minister, and pledged to boot Shein from France if it didn't remove these products. In response, Shein put its tail between its legs and announced a complete ban on sex dolls on its platform. A spokesperson said, "We are taking immediate corrective action and strengthening our internal mechanisms to prevent such a situation from happening again." This incident only poured gasoline on the fire already raging against Shein in France, whose politicians, unions, and fashion leaders have railed against ultra-cheap Chinese goods pouring into the market. An online petition against Shein's store opening on Wednesday has been signed by over 100,000 people. Fashion workers have staged protests, and many brands have pulled their items from the department stores set to house Shein's new boutique. Toby, France's war against Shein has hit a new register, but it seems like plans to open the store are still on.
Yeah, BHV is this department store. It's, a department store for Parisians. It's not necessarily one that invites a lot of tourists. So it's a symbol of, local pride, of Parisian craftsmanship. This is, the home of haute couture fashion right here. So to have someone like Shein come into that place is just kind of a cultural inflection point for a lot of people. It's a pressure point for a lot of people, but the owner of BHV is not backing down whatsoever. He wants to open this store on Wednesday and has 5 more Shein shop-in-shops planned at different locations as well. The owner of SGM said on Instagram, business is real life. So he's basically betting that tons of people order from Shein, and he thinks that it is going to outweigh the potential cons of, just the cultural backlash by saying it's going to be good for business because a lot of people are going to come in and shop at this store.
Kind of reminds me of the Cracker Barrel thing a little bit, because this department store is, it's been around for so long, but it's struggling. It's not getting as many visitors. So these owners are looking to shake things up. They want to get more young people into this store. So what are they doing? They're opening a Shein, which has been super popular. It's one of the fastest growing retailers anywhere in the world. So they're opening it up inside this department store to get new traffic. Obviously, that's been that's generated a huge backlash among French politicians and even large swaths of the public. But they did open this pop-up store, this Shein pop-up store, during Paris Fashion Week back in September, and it was mobbed. Like, there were so many people, so many young people. There were influencers there. So this Shein store opening might expose this generational divide also in France, where you have a lot of folks who are saying this goes against everything we stand for in terms of environmentalism and craftsmanship and things like that. And then you have the other side where it's saying, actually, you are just you're just a very vocal minority. There are a ton of people who are getting priced out of a lot of goods and clothing, and they actually want to shop at Shein. So it's a very high-risk bet that they're making.
Yeah, and they're not exactly shying away from the controversy either. There is a giant billboard kind of hanging over the department store of the president of SGM, the real estate group who owns BHV, and the executive chairman of Shein, Donald Tang, standing next to each other and posing together. So it's not something that they're trying to just secretly or quietly put into this department store. It's definitely something where they're almost inviting controversy and saying, like, hey, we are doing this, come shop. There's so much cultural symbolism tied up into this move, as well as just the business case of saying it will probably increase foot traffic. All right, we're going to take a quick break and come back with Toby's Trends. Welcome to Toby's Trends, the segment where I poke around the business world for a trend you should keep in your back pocket to impress a date. And today's trend is about companies trying again when it comes to AI ads. Coca-Cola is going back to the AI well to remake its iconic "The Holidays Are Coming" campaign that features a caravan of red trucks streaming through the snow. Last year, it employed AI to create something that got slammed for being more uncanny valley than compelling content. Think truck wheels that don't spin and less holiday charm than your dentist's waiting room. But this year, they decided to run it back, hoping improvements in image generating technology would lead to a better received ad. Last year, people criticized the craftsmanship, the company's head of generative AI told The Hollywood Reporter. But this year, the craftsmanship is 10 times better. And they sort of pulled it off. This year's ad features a menagerie of critters from polar bears to pandas that replace any humans, and the truck's wheels do appear to actually be spinning. But there is still lots of industry backlash, with one writer from The Verge calling it sloppy eyesore that feels dated compared to videos from OpenAI's Sora 2 or Google's Veo 3. However, the opinions of normal people do appear to be shifting, if only slightly, with just 46% of customers saying they're not okay with AI in ads, down from 49% last year. Neal, it feels like this Coca-Cola ad is turning into an annual temperature check, both on the technology's ability to actually pull off an ad for a major company and the public's attitude towards AI.
This is not a small scale experiment either for a smaller company. This is Coke we're talking about. This is one of the biggest global advertisers anywhere, and Coke is synonymous with the holidays. Coke essentially invented our perception of what Santa Claus is, of what modern Santa Claus is. So this is a huge swing that they're taking for the second straight year. Obviously, they looked at their own data and said that, well, again, maybe like going back to the backstory, or the last story with Sheehan saying there's a large vocal minority of critics online, but the actual numbers tell the tale that we are resonating with consumers. They looked at their benchmarks and said, hey, this was good, or this, people receive this well, and, the animation was quite terrible. So if we can improve this, then I think we can only create a better ad. And there were also third parties that scored 2024 holidays ads. System One is a UK-based company. They looked at the effectiveness of this particular ad, and they said, yeah, it actually did resonate with consumers. So Coke is looking at all of the data and saying, this was a calculated bet that we took last year. We got a lot of criticism, but actually it surpassed our expectations, and now we're going to go even bigger next time.
Yeah, the bet is something that you often hear from companies that employ AI, is that people don't care how the ad is actually made, as long as it emotionally resonates, as long as people feel that holiday warmth spreading through their chest. They don't actually care who was behind the keyboard that was making the ad. Again, whether that's true or not maybe remains to be seen, because it does look like there is significant backlash to companies that employ AI, but at least from an economics perspective, you can see why Coke is going down this particular rabbit hole. They say that the production time for a ad generated with AI is 1 month versus the usual 12 months that it takes to put together a Coca-Cola campaign of this size. They said still around 100 people worked on the ad. I think this is them trying to say, like, hey, we're not actually replacing jobs here. The same amount of people worked on the ad as they would have in the past, but now they have 5 AI specialists that generated and refined 70,000 video clips for one single ad. So I think they're trying to have their cake and eat it too here, saying like, hey, we did it faster and cheaper, but we still actually use the same amount of people. Right. But also we have 5 people who did most of the work here. So it's growing pains, obviously, as they're trying to navigate this PR campaign side of it as well.
And I don't want to steal Toby's trends, but if I had to say a trend, it would be that more advertisers are going to be using AI in their commercials. This year, 30% of connected TV commercials, social videos, and online videos were built or enhanced using generative AI tools, according to the Interactive Advertising Bureau. That's up from 22% in 2024, and next year that figure is expected to rise to 39% in 2026.
Just anecdotally speaking, I'm on YouTube a lot, so like ads are just being fed to me. I have seen a noticeable uptick of just smaller stings, like 15-second ones. I just saw one for a hand warmer ad where it's clearly an AI-generated content, but again, what you're seeing is this product makes your hand warmer, so that I think you're about to see maybe a flood of these types of ads start to populate your feeds as they just become easier to produce and cheaper to produce as well.
Let's sprint to the finish with some final headlines. It was a day of the week that ends in Y, which meant OpenAI inked another major deal to satisfy its insatiable hunger for computing power. This time, the beneficiary was Amazon, the first time the two companies have done cloud business together. OpenAI pledged to spend $38 billion on cloud computing services from Amazon to help run its AI systems, such as ChatGPT. Amazon stock shot up 4% on the day, a pattern we've seen with any company signing a partnership with OpenAI. But come on, Sam Altman, what is this? A deal for ants? $38 billion seems paltry compared to other recent OpenAI commitments, including spending $300 billion with Oracle and $250 billion with Microsoft. Still, the agreement with Amazon will spark even more debate about whether OpenAI's hugely expensive bet will pay off, given it's slated to bring in just $13 billion in revenue this year.
$13 billion in revenue, and yet it has literally trillions of dollars in outlays. The thing that came to mind immediately upon seeing this deal was this exchange that Sam Altman had with an investor in OpenAI, Brad Gerstner, on a podcast that he was with Satya Nadella. And basically, Brad Gerstner asked the question that everyone's been asking is, how can a company with $13 billion in revenues make $1.4 trillion of spend commitments? And everyone started to nitpick Sam Altman's response to this because it was weirdly confrontational and defensive, saying like, hey, Brad, if you don't want your shares, like there's plenty of buyers out there, where you kind of like change the subject. So it is an awkward kind of undercurrent here. What if OpenAI doesn't scale the revenue that it expects going forward? What happens to all these contracts? Is it just this circular AI economy that will collapse if one of the main players can't make good on all these contracts? So every time you start to see one of these announcements, you start to think in the back of your mind, all right, these bills are adding up. What's actually going to happen when they come due? So good, announce it, stocks go up, everybody's happy, but maybe eventually we'll be talking a year later saying this probably was a little bit of a frothy period in the market in general. All right, moving on. If you're rolling down the Las Vegas Strip in a pink limo for your bachelorette party, keep a vigilant eye out for any Cybertrucks in your rearview mirror, because Las Vegas just secured 10 of the Tesla behemoths to usher in, quote, the future of policing, according to a Clark County sheriff. Investor Ben Horowitz, who co-founded Andreessen Horowitz, and his wife Felicia donated 10 black and white cyber patrol vehicles to the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. At the same press conference where the sheriff called the trucks the future of policing, he also said 400 officers had been trained to operate the vehicles, which have been updated with extended battery capacity, ladders, shields, and shotguns. The Cybertrucks also have added benefits like a shorter turn radius, he said. The optics, though, have raised some concerns about how private interest donations from billionaires affect the public sphere. Neal, each one of these things is valued somewhere between $80,000 and $115,000. It's a very conspicuous donation.
It seems like a little bit of an overkill for police cruiser, but LVMPD is quite happy about it because they are going to turn it into the best recruiting tool they've ever gotten. In their introductory X post on this, they say, hey, we've got 10 Cybertrucks now. Want to drive one? Join the team. You can drive this $80,000 vehicle that you never probably would be able to afford otherwise, because very few people can. And now if you join our force, you get to cruise around Vegas. You got to cruise around the Strip and elsewhere around here on a Cybertruck, looking pretty badass and cool. It's also been extremely divisive for this donation, but also just for the look of the Cybertruck and what it means for policing. Critics have said that these Cybertrucks are designed for intimidation and not safety. And even Elon Musk himself said that the Cybertruck was designed with what Harrison Ford's character would have driven on patrol in Blade Runner, and that doesn't necessarily engender warm feelings of a cohesive society. So extremely divisive thing that LVMPD just did. But yeah, now they're going to be Cybertrucks, police cruisers cruising around Las Vegas. Oh, one other note that is interesting and why they thought that this would be a good car for police is that a lot of police cars idle all the time, and the Cybertruck electric vehicle doesn't burn any fuel while it does that. All right, finally, Martha Stewart is releasing a book today that aims to attract a new generation to her lifestyle business empire. But it's not a new book, it's a reissue of her first one ever. Entertaining, which first came out 43 years ago and had been out of print for years, is getting a second life as Stewart tries to capitalize on nostalgia and the perennial desire to host the perfect dinner party, whether it's a Hawaiian luau for 20 or a midnight omelet party for 30. Even at 84, Stewart says Gen Z can relate to her as they would any other influencer. In a recent interview, she described herself as the original trad wife and said the youth love her, quote, because I'm cool. Not only can I cook, I hang out with Snoop Dogg, and I have gone to jail. I have been through the ringer and come out alive. Now a new group of readers will be able to learn where it all began.
Yeah, she's kind of the proto creator economy mogul here, way before any of these terms existed. I mean, she was almost the original influencer in a lot of ways. So of course, a lot of young people are just attracted to her story. I mean, it's Martha Stewart. Like, you can read all into all the influence she had, or you can just say she's an extremely compelling figure across generations right now. So it is absolutely no surprise whatsoever that young people are glamming onto her current book right now, even though she's written literally 101 books. So it is interesting now that Martha is just as powerful. She's still at the peak of her powers. There's been plenty of documentaries that have come out as well that kind of added to her mythos as well. So even though that we saw this headline and like, oh, of course Martha Stewart's book is selling well, she really is just one of those people that seem to engender so much attention because she is just such a compelling figure.
And she makes smart strategic moves all along the way. This book had been out of print for a long time, and if you go online to eBay or any other secondhand sites, I mean, it cost $35 originally, but you see these books going for upwards of $1,000, and there's tons of TikToks about this book and other aspects of Martha Stewart's life. So truly the OG influencer, and she's still going strong. All right, that is all the time we have. Thanks for starting your morning with us. Have a wonderful Tuesday. For any feedback on the show or you just want to say hi, send a note to morningbrew@morningbrew.com or DM us on Instagram @MBDailyShow. Let's roll the credits. Emily Milliron is our executive producer. Raymond Liu is our producer. Our associate producers are Olivia Graham and Olivia Lake. Hair and Makeup is taking off to work their local polling place, which can't be mad about. Devin Emery is our president, and our show is a production of Morning Brew.
Great show today, Neal. Let's run it back tomorrow.